There are two kinds of people in this world: people who mind their own business and people who join the homeowners association. I am, very firmly, the first kind. My neighbor across the street, Brenda, is the undisputed, iron-fisted, beige cardigan-wearing queen of the second. Which is why, on a perfectly pleasant Tuesday morning, I was standing in my bathrobe on my driveway, clutching a coffee mug in one hand and a piece of thick, offensively beige cardstock in the other, feeling my blood pressure do the tango. "What's got you looking like you just read your own obituary?" I didn't even turn. My best friend Sal was walking his dog, a dopey golden retriever named Meatball. "Worse," I said, my voice low. "I just got a letter from the beige dictatorship." I was staring at my prized possession. My grandfather's 1994 Ford Taurus station wagon. Affectionately, I called her the Albatross. She was a majestic shade of sea foam green, the kind of color that screamed, "I have seen things, and I have given up." She hadn't moved from her spot in my driveway since, well, let's just say the 2019 inspection sticker on the windshield was starting to look vintage. She wasn't junk, she was resting. "Oh boy," Sal said, stopping. Meatball immediately tried to lick a weed growing through a crack in my pavement. "What is it this time? Your mailbox non-conforming again?" "Worse," I repeated. I cleared my throat and read the letter aloud, my voice dripping with dramatic flair. "Dear Mr. Henderson, it has come to the attention of the Meadowbrook HOA Architectural Review Committee." "That's just Brenda," Sal interjected. "The committee is just her and that weird guy Gerald who collects ceramic frogs." "Shh, I'm reading that an unsightly vehicle identified as a 1994 Ford Taurus is being stored on your property in a state of disrepair. This automotive blight." "Blight," I hissed, my voice cracking. "She called the Albatross automotive blight." Sal winced. "Ouch!" "Is in direct violation of Covenant 7.4b, which prohibits the storage of non-functional, unregistered, or derelict vehicles in public view." "It's not in public view," I argued, mostly to myself. "It's in my view, on my driveway." "Leo, we can all see it," Sal said gently. "The mailman has to walk around it onto the grass." I ignored him. "You have 14th days from the date of this letter to remove the aforementioned vehicle from the property. Failure to comply will result in daily fines of $50, followed by further legal action up to and including a lien on your property and forced removal at your expense." I finished reading. The silence that followed was heavy. Meatball, having finished with the weed, was now just staring at me. "So," Sal said, "you gonna junk it?" "Junk it," I sputtered. "Junk her? Sal, that car has character. It has a family of very polite spiders living in the passenger side visor. They don't even spin webs. They just judge." "Leo," Sal said, with the long-suffering patience of a man who has been my friend for 20 years. "The last time you tried to start it, the horn just went off for 3 hours, until the battery died. Your neighbors hated you. That was a mechanical cry for help. Not its fault." I looked across the street. And there she was. Brenda. She was pretending to trim an already immaculate rosebush. But I saw her. I saw that tight-lipped, triumphant smirk. She knew I'd be reading it right now. She planned this. She was wearing a beige visor that perfectly matched the beige siding of her house, which perfectly matched the beige gravel in her flower beds. The woman was an oppressive symphony of bland. "It's her," I growled. "She's been waiting for this." "Look, man," Sal said, tugging on Meatball's leash. Just call one of those we buy junk cars places. They'll give you $50 and tow it away. Problem solved. Then we can get tacos. Tacos? I looked at him, aghast. You speak of tacos at a time like this? This isn't about a car, Sal. This is about tyranny. This is about the homogenization of suburbia. This is about my God-given American right to have a slightly moss-covered station wagon if I damn well please. Sal sighed. So, no tacos? No tacos. I crumpled the letter in my fist. This is war, Sal. You just declared war on the wrong, unemployed graphic designer with way too much free time, Brenda. I stormed inside, the screen door slamming shut behind me. I had 14 days. 14 days to outsmart a woman whose entire personality was based on enforcing rules about the correct shade of taupe for window shutters. I made another pot of coffee. This was going to take a while. I called Sal back an hour later, pacing my living room and kicking at a pile of laundry I'd been meaning to fold for a week. My cat, a fluffy orange monster named General So, watched me from the back of the sofa, his tail twitching in annoyance. Okay, I said, not even bothering with a hello. I'm on the HOA website. I'm reading the covenants. Leo, buddy, don't do this, Sal's voice came through the speaker. Just let it go. It's a car. A car that, I must remind you, has a distinct smell of old cheese and regret. They're tenants, Sal, I snapped, referring to the family of mice I was pretty sure lived in the glove compartment. And they're very quiet. Look, I'm reading this thing. Covenant 7.4b, derelict vehicles. Okay, fine. But what defines derelict? What defines vehicle? I think wheels, engine, rusty doors, you know, the things the albatross has. That's just like your opinion, man. I need a loophole. I need to find a way to make it not a car. What are you gonna do? Take the wheels off and call it a shed? She'll just cite you for an unapproved outbuilding. Covenant 8.1c, I'm guessing. He was probably right. I skimmed down. Yep, 8.1c. All outbuildings, sheds, and playhouses must be pre-approved by the committee and painted to match the primary dwelling. She's thought of everything, I muttered, sinking onto the couch. General Tso climbed into my lap and started purring, blissfully unaware of the suburban warfare brewing. This woman has spent years crafting this document. It's the Beige Constitution. There's a whole section, a full page, on holiday decorations. Inflatable lawn ornaments are strictly prohibited. Illumination must be static and warm white only. No twinkling or blinking permitted. What kind of monster outlaws twinkling? A monster who is currently winning, man. She's got you. The car is a car. It's derelict. You have to move it. No, I said, staring at a water stain on my ceiling. No, I refuse. This isn't just my car. It was my grandfather's. Your grandfather hated that car, Sal reminded me. He called it the Green Disaster. He told you to junk it the day he gave it to you. Irrelevant, I shouted, making the general jump. He gave it to me. It's heritage. It's a piece of family history. And she's not fining my history. She's not fining your history, Leo. She's fining your lawn ornament that's leaking transmission fluid. It's not leaking. It's just marking its territory. Leo, I gotta go, I said. I need to think. I need to get inside her head. What does Brenda fear? What does she truly hate? Color, Sal offered. Fun? Anything that doesn't look like it came from the Land of Bland catalog? Exactly, I said, a dark, petty, and frankly terrifying idea starting to form in the back of my mind. Expression. She hates expression. And if I can't hide it, I'll have to make it something she can't fight. I hung up, a slow, dangerous smile spreading across my face. She wants a war, General, I said to the cat. She's gonna get a masterpiece. For the next 3 days, I was a man possessed. I barely slept. I lived on stale coffee and the crumbs at the bottom of a cereal box. I was a digital archaeologist, deep diving into the bylaws, searching for the one crack in Brenda's beige fortress. My Google search history from that period was a work of art in itself. How to fight Ho'ai and win legal loopholes. Hoa Covenant 7.4b. How to make a 1994 Ford Taurus invisible. How to paint a car urban camouflage. Best camouflage for suburban driveway. HOA rules on giant car covers. That last one seemed promising for a minute. I'd just buy a massive car-shaped tent. But then I found Covenant 9.3. All vehicle covers must be of a neutral color, black, gray, tan, and be form-fitting. Tarpaulins, tents, or other non-conforming textile structures are prohibited. She even outlaws tarps, I yelled at the empty room. She's a genius, an evil, bland genius. I considered renting a storage unit. I looked up the prices. $150 a month. To store a car I don't drive. That wasn't a victory. That was surrender. That was paying for my own exile. That was Vichy France. I considered just painting it. What if I painted it the exact shade of beige as her house? A passive-aggressive masterpiece. But no, she'd just fine me for improperly stored paint materials, and the car would still be derelict. I was getting desperate. It was day 4, 10 days left. I was pacing the kitchen, frustrated, trying to make toast, and realizing I was out of bread. I settled for scraping the bottom of a peanut butter jar with a spoon. It was bleak. I slumped against the counter, staring at the junk drawer I'd been meaning to clean for, 5 years. On top of the fridge, mocking me, was my old change jar. One of those giant glass water cooler bottles. It was almost full. I'd been throwing my change in there since college. My retirement fund, I used to call it. Maybe I can just pay the fine, I muttered to myself. How much change is in there? $50? $100? Frustrated, I grabbed the giant, heavy bottle. I was going to dump it on the counter, count it, and then just give up. But the bottle was heavier than I thought, and the peanut butter spoon hand was slick. The bottle slipped. It didn't break, thank God. But it tipped over. The lid popped off, and a river of coins. Pennies, nickels, dimes, but mostly pennies, cascaded across my kitchen floor. It was an avalanche of copper. They rolled under the fridge, under the stove, into the cat's water bowl. A solid, shimmering carpet of pennies. I just stared. General So came over, sniffed a quarter, and looked at me, unimpressed. But I wasn't looking at him. I was looking at the sheer volume of pennies, the shininess, the coverage. A thought sparked. A tiny, insane, beautiful, terrible thought. Wait a minute, I whispered. I scrambled to my feet, slipping on a pile of dimes, and ran to my laptop. I didn't search for car, I searched for art. HOA rules on yard art. And there it was. Section 12, Artistic Expression. My heart was pounding. I read it aloud. Homeowners are encouraged to maintain aesthetic harmony with the community. However, the committee recognizes the value of personal expression. Lawn sculptures, artistic installations, and mosaics are permitted, provided they are not. I scanned the page, my eyes wide. Offensive, pose a safety hazard, or fall into disrepair. All installations must be properly maintained. I looked at the pennies on the floor. I looked out the window at the albatross. It wasn't a non-functional vehicle. It was a sculpture. It wasn't automotive blight. It was a mixed media mosaic. "Oh my God," I whispered. "That's it." I grabbed my phone and speed-dialed Sal. He picked up on the third ring, sounding sleepy. "Sal, I've got it. I'm not moving the car." "Leo, it's 7 a.m. on a Saturday," he groaned. "What? Did you find a unicorn to tow it for free?" "No, I'm recontextualizing it." There was a long, weary pause on the other end. "You're what? Did you join a cult? Recontextualizing sounds expensive and involves robes." "No, man, I'm recontextualizing its purpose. It's not a car anymore. It's art." "Leo, you can't just slap a beret on it and call it Litoris. It's not art. It's junk." "It's not junk if I say it's art." I was giddy, grabbing a broom and starting to sweep the pennies into a giant copper mountain. "Brenda's Covenant, Section 12. It allows artistic installations. She can't fight it, Sal. It's a loophole big enough to drive a stationary wagon through." What are you going to do?" Sal asked, and I could hear the genuine fear in his voice. "Please don't say, paint a mural of yourself giving her the finger." "Better. I'm going to cover it in pennies, every last square inch. Thousands of them, 10,000 of them. Pennies. Yes, it's a statement. A metallic commentary on the devaluation of currency in a late-stage capitalist society. A monument to the persistence of American industry. It's shiny." Another long, agonizing silence. "Leo," Sal said, his voice flat. "You are completely, certifiably pants-on-head insane." "I'm an artist, Sal." "You're an unemployed graphic designer who just spilled his change jar, isn't he?" "That's just how the muse works. I gotta go. I need to get to the bank. And I'm going to need a lot of glue." I hung up before he could talk me out of it. I looked at the pile of pennies. It was a good start, but it wasn't enough. Not nearly. The albatross was a big girl. "Okay, General," I said, grabbing my keys. "Phase 1, acquire the medium." My first stop was the bank. Not my usual branch, but one across town where they didn't know me. I walked in, trying to look as normal as possible for a guy who was about to make the most suspicious-sounding withdrawal in community banking history. I got in line. The teller who called me up was a young woman named Tammy, according to her name tag. She had aggressively cheerful eyes. "Hi there! What can we do for you today?" she chirped. "Hi, Tammy," I said, trying to sound casual. "I'd like to make a withdrawal. I need $100. "Certainly," she said, her fingers already dancing on the keyboard. "How would you like that? 20s, 50s? I leaned in, as if I were about to share a state secret. "Pennies," I whispered. Her smile didn't so much falter as it did freeze. It was like her face suddenly rebooted. "Sir?" "Pennies," I said again, a little louder. $100 worth. In pennies. That's 10,000 pennies, I believe." Tammy blinked. Once. Twice. 10,000 pennies. "Yes, it's for an art project," I offered, hoping this would help. It did not. "An art project. A mosaic." "Right." She looked around, as if searching for a hidden camera. "Sir, I don't think we just have 10,000 pennies lying around." "Oh," I said, my heart sinking. "But you're a bank." "Yes, but we mostly use them. To, give back as change." not as the primary withdrawal. She bit her lip. Let me go, says my manager. She disappeared into a back room. I stood there, shuffling my feet. The old woman behind me in line sighed heavily and started tapping her cane. I could feel the judgment. I felt like a criminal, but a very, very specific criminal who was really into copper. Tammy came back 5 minutes later with a very tired-looking man in a suit. Sir, the manager said, you'd like $100 in pennies? Yes, please. Rolled, if possible. Or in boxes. Buckets? I'm not picky. The manager sighed, a deep, profound sigh that spoke of shattered dreams and variable-rate mortgages. This will take a few minutes. We'll have to get them from the vault. 20 minutes later, they wheeled out a small hand truck. On it were 2 heavy-duty bank boxes, sealed with packing tape. Here you go, sir, the manager said, his voice flat. $100, in pennies. Fantastic! Thank you so much. I went to pick up the first box, and I almost fell over. Oh, wow, I grunted. That's dense. 55 pounds, sir, Tammy offered, her smile back. But this time it was a little manic. Per box. Pennies are heavy. Right, art is heavy, I panted, hoisting the first box. I waddled out to my car, dumped it in the trunk, and came back for the second. By the time I was done, I was sweating, and my back was already twinging. This art had better be worth the eventual chiropractor bill. As I drove home, I had a second, much more practical realization. I had 10,000 pennies. I had a car. I had a vision. I had absolutely no idea how to actually stick 10,000 pennies to a car. I am a graphic designer. I use a mouse. The most industrial adhesive I own is a dried-up glue stick. This was not a one-man job. I needed professionals. When I got home, I looked up local contractors. I didn't want a clean crew. I didn't want guys in matching polos who would ask questions. I needed guys who saw a problem and solved it with brute force and chemicals. My eyes landed on a listing in the online directory. Rocco & Sons General Contracting. We fix what he broke. No job too weird. Their truck, which I'd seen around town, was a non-HOA approved shade of rust red, and it always looked like it was hauling a small mountain. They were perfect. I called. A gravelly voice answered on the first ring. Rocco. Hi. My name's Leo. I have a specialty adhesive job. It's a mosaic. A mosaic, Rocco grunted. Tiling? Backsplash? Sort of. It's outdoors, on a metal surface. It's complicated. Can you come take a look? $20 for the estimate. Deal. An hour later, the rust-red truck rumbled to a stop in front of my house. It was so loud, I'm pretty sure it set off a car alarm 3 streets over. Brenda's curtains twitched. Out stepped Rocco. He was exactly as I'd pictured. He was a barrel-chested man with a magnificent gray mustache, and he looked like he ate gravel for breakfast and washed it down with gasoline. Behind him, 2 younger, even larger versions of him emerged. They were Vinny and Polly. They didn't look like contractors. They looked like they were here to repossess my kneecaps. All right, kid, Rocco said, not bothering with introductions. You said specialty adhesive. Where's the job? My throat was dry. This was the moment of truth. It's right here, I said, pointing to the albatross. Rocco and his sons just stared. They looked at the car, then at me, then back at the car, Polly, the bigger one, was chewing gum, and he actually stopped. "You want us to fix this thing?" Vinny asked, confused. "No," I said, taking a deep breath. I walked over to my trunk and hauled out one of the heavy bank boxes, dropping it on the pavement with a heavy thud and a metallic jingle. "I want you to tile that," I said, pointing to the car. "With these." I ripped the box open, revealing thousands of rolled pennies. Silence. Glorious, beautiful, confused silence. Rocco just stared. Vinny scratched his head, which looked like it might cause a small avalanche. Polly resumed chewing, but slower. "You want to glue pennies," Rocco said, not as a question, but as a statement he was trying to understand. "To the car." "It's a sculpture," I said quickly. A permanent art installation. To stick it to the HOA. I pointed across the street. "Brenda, over there. She sent me a letter." Rocco's eyes followed my finger. He looked at Brenda's house, with its perfect, beige, sterile lawn. A flicker of something. Recognition? Rage? Passed over his face. "Brenda," he said, his voice a low rumble. "The one with the roses? Skinny lady? Looks like she's always smelling something bad?" "The one and only." Rocco was silent for a long moment. Then a slow, magnificent smile spread across his face, revealing a gold tooth. He turned to his truck. "Vinny! Polly! Get the industrial epoxy! The good stuff!" He turned back to me and cracked his knuckles. The sound was like a tree branch snapping. "That lady," Rocco said, "made me move my truck 4 times last month. Said it was visually loud. Made me repaint my favorite toolbox. Said it wasn't desert taupe." He clapped me on the shoulder, nearly sending me to my knees. "Kid, we'll take the job. But this ain't a normal job. This is artistic installation. That's double rate." "I'll pay it," I said, giddy with relief. "Good," Rocco grinned. "This is going to be a masterpiece." The next morning, at 8 a.m. sharp, the rust-red truck rumbled back, shaking my windows. Rocco, Vinny, and Polly piled out, looking like the world's most overqualified art collective. They weren't just carrying toolboxes, they were carrying 5-gallon buckets of industrial 2-part epoxy. The kind the label warns you not to get on your skin, your clothes, or any small nation-states you're fond of. "All right, kid," Rocco bellowed, slapping the side of the Albatross. "First, we prep the canvas. Vinny, get the power washer. Polly, the degreaser." For the first 2 hours, they just cleaned. The Albatross, it turned out, was home to not just spiders, but a significant amount of moss, a few stubborn patches of lichen, and what Rocco clinically identified as at least 3 layers of bird crap. The water that ran down my driveway was a foul greenish-brown. She's got a real patina," I offered weakly, standing on the sidelines. "She's got moss, kid," Rocco grunted, blasting a hubcap. "Moss ain't gonna hold epoxy. Now, you gonna help or you gonna supervise?" "I'm the artist," I said. "I'm here for creative direction." Rocco just grunted and handed me a pair of rubber gloves. "Good. You can unroll pennies. We'll be here all week." For the next 3 days, my driveway became a bizarre, open-air studio. The smell was the first thing. The epoxy was pungent, a sharp, chemical tang that cleared my sinuses and probably gave the squirrels in my oak tree a permanent migraine. It smelled like a model airplane factory had a passionate, illicit affair with a chemical fire. The process was a masterpiece of tedious, back-breaking labor. "All right," Rocco directed, mixing a batch of gray, viscous goo. "Here's the deal. I spread the mud. Vinny, you press the pennies. Polly, You're on shiny side up duty. Kid, you keep the pennies coming. Heads up or tails up? I asked, dumping 1,000 pennies into a bucket. Should we make a pattern? Like an American flag? Or a giant copper middle finger? Rocco shot me a look. Kid, for what we're charging, you're getting shiny side sticks. We ain't doing mosaics within mosaics. We start at the roof, we work our way down. And so we did. It was glue, press, hold, glue, press, hold, 1,000 times over. My fingers were permanently sticky. I had epoxy in my hair. I'm pretty sure I ingested some. Boss, Vinny said on day 2, his massive arms covered in goo and pennies. I'm getting dizzy. And this car, it's still a car, right? It's a sculpture, Vinny, I insisted. It's about duality and currency. Yeah? Okay, Vinny said, shrugging. All I know is it's 500 pennies just to cover the driver's side door. We worked. We sweated. We became one with the epoxy. We even found the famous spider family, they evacuated, and a bird's nest tucked into the front wheel well. Boss, what about the nest? Polly asked, holding a glob of epoxy. I rushed over. Don't move it, I commanded, surprising even myself. It's part of the installation. It's nature versus industry. It's perfect. We glue around it. Rocco just sighed, but he did it. All right, boys. The artist says we glue around the nest. Add it to the bill, Vinny. Custom environmental accommodation. By the afternoon of day 2, the car was halfway done. And it was bizarre. It looked less like a car and more like some kind of strange copper-scaled dragon. It was glorious, and of course it was attracting attention. Neighbors I hadn't spoken to in years were suddenly walking their dogs past my house, repeatedly. Cars were slowing down. A guy from the local news van actually stopped, took a picture with his phone, shook his head, and drove off. I was a local curiosity. And then she arrived. Brenda. She didn't walk. She stormed. She marched across the street, her beige cardigan flapping behind her like a battle flag. Her face was a shade of puce I had never seen in nature. Rocco, Vinny, and Polly all visibly tensed, like 3 bears who'd just smelled a wildfire. "Mr. Henderson!" she shrieked, stopping at the edge of my lawn. What is the meaning of this? I put on my best, most serene artist smile. I waved my glue-covered spatula. Brenda, hello? Welcome to the performance art piece. Glad you could make it. This isn't construction, it's creation. This is an abomination, she sputtered. You're supposed to be removing this junk, not bedazzling it. I think you'll find, I said, pointing a sticky finger, that I am in full compliance with Section 12. This is an artistic installation. It's a mosaic. That is a car. You're covering a derelict vehicle in money. It's tacky. This was when Rocco decided to step in. He wiped his hands on a rag, walked over, and stood to his full, impressive height. Excuse me, lady, he rumbled. This here is a commissioned art piece. We're Rocco & Sons Fine Art Installation. We're insured for mosaic work. This is a legitimate job site. Brenda looked from Rocco to his 2 mountain-sized sons, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of hesitation. But it was quickly replaced by pure, unadulterated HOA rage. This is a violation, she screeched, pulling out her phone. You're using unapproved industrial chemicals. The smell, it's olfactory blight. I am fining you. You'll be hearing from our lawyers. I am fining you for excessive shininess. She spun on her sensible heel and marched back to her beige fortress, phone already at her ear. She's persistent, I said. Rocco grinned. She's rattled. Let's finish the hood. It took until noon on day 3. Rocco stepped back, wiping his brow. All right, kid. That's the last penny. We all stood back. It was magnificent. It was glorious. It was the most ridiculous, beautiful, stupidly brilliant thing I had ever seen. The entire car, from bumper to bumper, roof to hubcaps, we'd even done the hubcaps, was a shimmering, seamless copper monument. The sun hit it, and it didn't just shine, it glowed. It looked like a dragon's horde had crash-landed in suburbia. Just then, Sal pulled up. He got out of his car, holding a six-pack, and just stared. His jaw was on the pavement. My God, Leo, he whispered, walking a slow circle around it. It's hideous. Absolutely love it. It's the most beautiful train wreck I've ever seen. It's not a train wreck, I said, beaming. It's art, and it needs one last thing. I walked over to the small patch of grass in front of the car's bumper. I pulled out a small, custom-engraved brass plaque I'd ordered online and had delivered overnight. I hammered its stake into the ground. Sal leaned in to read it. Sense and Sensibility, he read aloud. Mixed media, copper, steel, industrial epoxy, avian nesting material. Artist, Leo Henderson, 2025. Sal looked at me. Avian nesting material? The bird's nest, I said proudly. He kept reading. A commentary on suburban waste and the true price of conformity. Sal was quiet for a moment. Then he started to laugh. It wasn't a chuckle. It was a deep, rolling, uncontrollable cackle. You are a magnificent petty bastard, Leo. I'm an artist, I corrected him, dusting my hands. I looked at my masterpiece. I looked at the plaque. I looked across the street at Brenda's house, where the blinds were twitching frantically. Try and find that, Brenda, I whispered. I'd been admiring my handiwork for about an hour. Sal and I had cracked open 2 of the beers, and Rocco and his crew had just rumbled off, $800 richer, and promising to send me a Christmas card. The sun was starting to get low, and Sense and Sensibility was practically on fire, glowing like a holy relic in the golden hour. I saw a teenager on a skateboard stop, take a selfie with it, and ride off, laughing. I was a landmark. I was a legend. And then I saw the car. It wasn't Rocco's truck. It was a white police cruiser. It slowed as it approached my house, the driver and passenger both leaning to get a look. It didn't turn on its lights, but it pulled to a stop right at the end of my driveway, blocking me in. My heart didn't just drop. It bungee jumped into my stomach without a cord. Oh, crap, Sal muttered, lowering his beer. She actually did it. She called the cops. Across the street, Brenda's front door opened. She didn't come out. She just stood in the doorway, arms crossed, bathed in the light from her foyer. She was watching. Victorious. 2 officers got out. The first one, the driver, was older, with a gray mustache and a look of profound, soul-deep exhaustion. He looked like he'd seen everything, and he was tired of all of it. His name tag read, Miller. The second officer was a rookie, young, bright-eyed, and visibly trying not to laugh. He was biting his lip so hard, I thought he might draw blood. His tag read, Johnson. Afternoon, sir, Officer Miller said, his voice a gravelly sigh. He stopped a good 10 feet from the car, as if he was afraid it might be contagious. We got a call about I'm not sure what the call was about exactly. A vehicle dispute? A dispute! Came a shriek from across the street. Brenda was now on her lawn, pointing. Officer, thank goodness, this man, she jabbed a finger at me, is violating half a dozen city ordinances. He has a junk vehicle. It's a public nuisance. It's shiny. Officer Miller looked at the car. He looked at his notes. He looked at Brenda. He looked back at the car. Sir, he said to me, I'm just trying to understand. What is this? This was it. My performance. I took a deep breath, channeled my inner artist, and put on a calm, reasonable smile. It's art, officer, I said, gesturing expansively. A sculpture, see? I pointed to the plaque. It's titled Sense and Sensibility. It's my First Amendment right to expression. Officer Johnson, the rookie, coughed, a sound that was suspiciously like a giggle. He turned away, pretending to look at Brenda's house. It's art, Miller repeated, deadpan. He walked over and read the plaque. I saw his mustache twitch. It's a car, Brenda yelled, stomping onto the street. It's a derelict vehicle, and you are required by law to have it towed. The plates are expired. It's junk. Officer Miller turned his tired gaze on Brenda. Ma'am, please stay on your own property. I'm handling this. He turned back to me. Sir, the complainant says this is a vehicle. It looks like a vehicle. It was a vehicle, officer, I said, choosing my words carefully. But it has been recontextualized. It's a stationary object, a statue. You can't register a statue. It has tires, it has an engine. Tow it! Brenda screamed. Ah, I said, holding up a single, sticky finger. That's where you're mistaken. It does not have an engine. Miller raised an eyebrow. It doesn't? I leaned in, as did Sal. As part of its transformation into a work of art, the engine block was removed for artistic and weight reduction purposes. Rocco, the installation artist, took it. He said he needed a new boat anchor. Sal choked on his beer. So, Miller said, his voice dangerously flat. There is no engine in this, sculpture. Nope, I said, popping the P. No engine, no battery, no fluids. It has no intention of being driven, ever again. It is, by all legal definitions, no longer a motor vehicle. It's just stuff. Officer Johnson was now full-on hiding his face behind his notepad, his shoulders shaking. Officer Miller looked at the car. He looked at Brenda, who was now vibrating with a rage that seemed to defy physics. He looked at the plaque. He looked at the bird's nest in the wheel well. He let out the longest, most tortured sigh I have ever heard. Sir, he said to me, is it your testimony that this is a permanent art installation, that it is not a motor vehicle, and that it poses no immediate safety or environmental hazard? Absolutely, officer. My masterpiece. Miller nodded slowly. He turned around and faced Brenda. Ma'am, he said, his voice loud enough to carry across the street. I can't tow a man's art from his own lawn. Brenda's face. Oh, her face. It went from purple to white to a sort of blotchy, furious red. What? It's a car. No, ma'am, Miller said. It's not. According to the owner, it has no engine, making it junk, not a vehicle. And the city ordinance for junk removal only applies if it's a public nuisance or safety hazard. This is, well, it's just ugly, and there's no law against that. This is an HOA matter, not a police one. But, we're done here, ma'am. Have a nice evening. Officer Miller tipped his hat to me. Sir, try and keep the art on your own property. "Will do, officer." He and Johnson got back in the cruiser. As they pulled away, Officer Johnson, the rookie, looked back at me. He gave me a huge, beaming thumbs up before the car turned the corner. Brenda stood in the middle of the street, her mouth open. The sound she made was not human. It was a high-pitched, strangled squeal, like a tea kettle and a badger having a fatal disagreement. She spun around, marched back into her house, and slammed the front door so hard, I'm pretty sure a picture fell off her wall. The silence that fell over the neighborhood was beautiful. It was the sweet, crisp silence of absolute, total, and petty victory. Sal, who had been watching the entire exchange with a look of stunned awe, slowly turned to me. He raised his beer bottle. "You did it," he said, his voice full of wonder. "You magnificent, petty bastard. You actually did it. You beat her. With pennies." "It's Sense and Sensibility, Sal," I said, clinking his bottle. "It's high art." I took a long, cold sip. It was the best beer I'd ever tasted. I leaned back against the fender of my masterpiece. The copper was still warm from the afternoon sun. "I mean," Sal said, "it cost you what? $100 in pennies?" "And $800 in artistic installation fees from Rocco & Sons," I admitted. "Plus $20 for the estimate." $920, Sal calculated, for a car that was worth maybe $50 in scrap. "Yep," I said, grinning. "You spent almost $1,000 just to annoy Brenda." I looked across the street at her darkened window. I pictured her inside, stewing in her beige living room, defeated by a 1994 Taurus and 10,000 pennies. "That, Sal," I said, taking another sip, "was priceless." We stood there for a long time, just watching the sunset reflect off the most obnoxious, beautiful, and expensive lawn ornament in the entire state. It's been a week now. Sense and Sensibility is officially a local landmark. Teenagers take their prom pictures with it. The local paper ran a photo of it in the community section under the headline, "Local Change in Landscape." Brenda hasn't left her house, though I've seen her peeking through the blinds. She's sent me 3 more letters, citing unapproved metal cladding and visual pollution. But her lawyer knows she has no case. It's art, baby. Sal came over last night holding another 6-pack. "So," he said, tapping one of the pennies with his knuckle, "I was thinking, what happens when this epoxy fades, or when the copper starts to oxidize? You know this whole thing is going to turn that gross, crusty Statue of Liberty green, right?" I looked at my masterpiece, glistening under the porch light. I took a sip of my beer, and I smiled. "That's not decay, Sal. That's just the artist's vision evolving." I paused for effect. "That's phase 2. I'm calling it the verdigris vendetta." Sal just shook his head, laughing. "Brenda's gonna hate it." "I know," I said. "I can't wait."